What's up, and welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Worst, a podcast where we watch movie trilogies and uncover which film is going to try to sell you a big box of grease. Joining me are the original odd couple buddy cops themselves.
I'm Griner, and this podcast is going to hit you so hard you'll end up in the Ming Dynasty.
And I'm Luke Morgan, and we could have been a good couple. We could have had something special. But you one crazy ass bitch!
Alright, we're talking about Rush Hour. The 1998, 2001, 2007 buddy cop, action comedy film starring Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. Boys, what are your experiences of these films? I feel like these are films that every single person saw. And I grew up on them, and I feel like everyone who grew up in our era did. But I don't know, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I don't think I had seen number 3, but I definitely had seen number 1 and 2. They're movies, there's certainly quotes from these movies I still remember to this day. And I definitely had fun watching them this time. But I don't know, I really feel like they're kind of forgettable movies, I must say.
Wow.
Yeah, I had fun watching them. I didn't dislike my time with them, but I'm not going to think about these movies again until someone mentions them. They're not going to be in the back of my head replaying like some movies are.
If you ever touch a black man's radio, you don't think maybe I shouldn't do this, though?
Maybe that's the one exception.
So I watched, obviously, this was a big part of my childhood. I remember watching the VHS of Rush Hour 1 so many times as a kid.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's something a 7-year-old should be watching. It's not like it's violent or anything like that, but I just remember finding it hilarious. And obviously different stuff that I found hilarious, I just remember him dancing in the middle of the street and cracking up laughing as a kid, being like, what? Man, this dude's so goofy. What the hell's going on? And the whole, war, what is it good for song with them, and interacting with just taking the guns off each other. I just have all these nostalgic memories as a kid cracking up at those scenes. I have not watched these movies since I was a kid. I didn't really remember 2 that much at all. I'm sure I've seen it at one point. 1, I remembered the back of my hand still after all these years. Yeah. And 3, I have a very distinct memory of I went to the cinema to watch number 3 and being like, oh my God, Rush Hour's back. The film I watched when I was a kid. It's back, 7 years later. I would have been, I don't know what, 14, 15 years old and just going to the cinema with my sister and being like, oh my God, these are the film, the first one we watched when we were a kid. This is the third one. The end of this amazing trilogy that we've been watching. It's come to an end, this climax.
It's the culmination of all these threads that are going to get tied together finally.
Yeah, exactly. It's the start of the MCU, really. And yeah, it was interesting to go back and watch it. My wife had never seen these films before. She's now seen 20 minutes of one and she checked out.
What?
So
criminal.
She still hasn't seen most of them, but they're not great. One of them I think is a very enjoyable film. The other 2, what Griner said, I watched them this week. I kind of don't remember them already.
Yeah.
It's kind of okay, wow, which one was that? Okay, cool, that one. It's just yeah.
I watched one of these less than 24 hours ago, and I don't think I could tell you the plot of it. But anyway,
if that's number 3, that's because the plot of that film is hot trash.
Maybe fair enough.
Yeah. See, I grew up mostly with number 2. Back renting it for whatever reason. When you're a kid, you rent a different movie because you see the cover and it looks cool, or your parents rent it, or a sibling has it because they saw the first one before you. So anyway, somehow me and my sister ended up watching Rush Hour 2 first. And that's the one we always rented. That's the one I know like the back of my hand. And still to this day, even though I can very clearly see it's not as good as the first one, I think I just enjoy it more because of that sentimentality.
So you watch number 1 and you're like, oh, they're referencing number 2 when he says never touch a black man's radio. Is that you?
That's exactly right. No, and so I think we saw number 1 around the same time as soon after. But yeah, it was definitely just number 2 was just a fun movie. And that's what these are, I think. On the rewatch, 1 and 2 at least definitely feel like two of a kind, and they're just fun. To me, they're very entertaining. They're great background movies. I put these on when I just want something not to think about. It's just really fun to dip in and out of, and you go, oh, this is that set piece. This is the part where they go to Vegas, or this is their introduction. This is the gun taking scene. Like, that's cool. This is the great set piece where Jackie Chan scales up some scaffolding. Like, they're really fun for that, to just have going, listen to some jokes, have a laugh.
I will say, I expected them to be worse. I was like, because I haven't seen them since I was a kid, I was genuinely like, oh man, these are going to be bad films. And one thing I'll say that I really appreciated, like these days, how we watch a trilogy every fortnight, was the length of these films.
Oh, so good.
An hour and 20 minutes, like the credits take up the last 10 minutes or so.
Exactly.
You got an hour and 20 minutes of this film. Man, I was like, I could knock all three of these out in a night, basically. It was fantastic. It flies by, and you're like, okay, cool. That's all this movie needs to be. And films aren't like that anymore. And it was so good at that. Yeah. So
I mean, especially coming off a 5-part saga.
Twilight saga.
Of movies, movies that were far longer than they should have been. Yeah, it was refreshing to dip in and out in an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes.
And I think that adds to for me at least, its rewatchability and its somewhat enduring appeal, is that it is so short. You can watch them. There's no fluff. There's no they use the backstory in number 2 as a plot point, but there's no real delving into character. There's a handful of relationships mentioned but it's just like, no, this is it. It's a couple of days in their lives, and that's all we need. And it flies by. I think it's I mean, the plots are forgettable. These movies really are just pure comedies. They're just good for laughs. There's good action. There's no real violence. It's all pretty, it's all, even though they end here, Luke, you were saying you shouldn't watch it as a kid. I'm like, I can see why my parents let us watch this as kids, because they're actually pretty tame. Like, the worst they ever say is asshole, or they say they drop shit once or twice, but I think it's like once in each movie.
Yeah.
And that's really it. They keep it pretty sanitary.
Yeah. Like that's the thing. Like, it's not really blood or guts or anything. Like, and the thing that I loved about it so much as a kid, especially the first one, like I'll praise the first one a lot. It's just Jackie Chan stunts. Like,
so good.
And watching it now, like, it feels like that's not a thing anymore. Like these physical stunts. It's all like these CGI fights and big action sequences. But somebody just like doing interesting stuff, like the way they flip over a couch and then use this as a shield to do this, or use this to disarm like somebody. It's really interesting stuff of how, he looked at things. Oh, we could use this and do this in this fight, and it'll look cool. And it's basically all that 10-minute scene is. But it was so fun to watch, and like I'd be flipping around my lounge room as a kid, like thinking, pretending to be Jackie Chan. It was the coolest thing ever. I played the Jackie Chan game on PS1, whatever it was. It was so cool.
That cartoon show was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool. Yeah, I was thinking about the stunts, and like the thing I think of in modern day of like doing your own stunts is Tom Cruise, but it's always these huge set pieces. He's climbing the tallest tower in Dubai, or he's hanging off an aeroplane while it's in the air, and like Jackie Chan stunts feel really small compared to that, but they're just so much fun, and they really do, I think, add to the film. And you're right, we don't see that kind of smaller stunt work, I guess, as much anymore. It feels like.
Yeah.
No, even. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, because they do feel small, but at the same time, when you think about the logistics and the work that goes into it, they're huge.
Oh, like some of the, like in number 1 where he's jumping around and there's like he jumps over a bus and like there's vehicles all over the road, like that stuff can be very dangerous, obviously.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of choreography and timing involved to get that right.
Yeah.
And it's all. These films are better because the first 2 are better because we get to see, there is a difference between showing a stuntman doing stunts and showing the actor doing stunts. You can film it differently. You don't have to hide as much. And it really does add to those movies, I think.
Yeah. And I was thinking a bit about, I'm watching this about Brett Ratner, and we'll mention 2 things about him here. So the first thing is that obviously Brett Ratner is cancelled, as he should be cancelled. He's pretty unsanitary dude. Like, I don't think we should harp on this. So if you guys want to make your piece, please do. But
okay, like I don't want to harp on it and bring the podcast down, but
you're going to. That's fine.
It definitely needs addressing, because Brett Ratner is really not a good dude, and some of these films, and I feel like the more it goes on, especially the third one, it's hard to watch knowing that Brett Ratner is the director.
The third one especially is weird.
There's a lot of scenes where you're just like, like it's like I don't know. It's like he's just using Chris Tucker to live out his fantasies and doing stuff like that he would do. It's like, is he playing Brett Ratner? Is this what Brett Ratner's like? And just like certain camera shots, and it's just like you know, even the two girls at the start of the movie, like the way he has them up on the bench, and it's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It goes really into creepy territory with Chris Tucker's character.
Yeah, I mean, he's sleazy throughout the films, but I think the third one, it gets really weird. Like the young daughter, he's like, we should buy her a teddy bear and a bra as she walks in. Like, it's super creepy. And then
because he's older now.
And like convincing all the models that, you know, they should get naked. Like, that's very creepy. There's very much an imbalance of power there, which is the thing he's been accused of, obviously. Like, it does, I don't know. It's hard not to draw the parallels when the character's already sleazy and kind of not called out for it at all, particularly in the third film. Rewarded for it in a lot of ways. You know, it just feels a bit dirty.
A lot of it doesn't hold up at all.
No.
Like, I don't know, it was kind of weird to me as well. And it's so weird because, like, obviously watching it back in 2007 when the third one came out, like, it's not like it, you know, it was glaringly this thing as a 14-year-old.
Pre-Me Too, but yeah.
It wasn't bothering me as a 14-year-old kid, probably. But, like, you know, it's weird, the scene, like, where she takes her wig off and she's just got a shaved head. And it's like 5 minutes of him acting like she's a dude.
Yeah,
she's got a shaved head, and it's like, it's not funny. Like, what?
Yeah.
And it really harps on it, and it's just, it's, I don't know, it's awkward.
That scene's very, very brutally bad. Look, we'll circle back to this because this is all stuff to talk about with number 3 specifically.
Yes,
and I do have a lot of. I want to engage with this then because it's all about that film or anything. But with Brett Ratner, just for anyone listening home, he's got a string of things. He was accused originally of making slurs about homosexuals when he was prepping for the Oscars way back. That got him sort of on the radar. And then once Me Too started, he got accused by many women for sexual assault and rape. I don't know if anything's fully come from that, but it seems, you know, pretty obvious that he did it. He knows he's no longer working. His production company, I think, is more or less just gone quiet, and his career is sort of dead, and he's just disappeared, which is definitely what should have happened.
Yep.
But then looking at just thinking about him as a director as well, I was just looking into a bit of like his whole thing. Even his photos just kind of creepy. He's just a greasy looking dude. I was just thinking about just his direction, you know, like all these films come up with a Brett Ratner movie, and I was like, okay, let's see if his fingerprints are on this. And in number 3, he's got some dirty, dirty fingerprints on it. But I was talking with a guy at work as well, and he's like, is Brett Ratner a good director? I'm like, he's not. But the one thing I'll say to his style, at least in this, is what we were saying about Jackie Chan's physical acting. At the very least, he doesn't move the camera too much when Jackie's doing stuff. And so you can tell Jackie Chan is doing this stuff. You can tell it's all authentically done. And I was just thinking, if this was done 10 years later, when the era of shaky cam and stuff,
it
would just be... And that's partially the reason I wonder if the style of physical action comedy has died a bit with CGI and with just different values of action, where you don't need to have Jackie Chan doing stunts because you're just shaking it everywhere.
Yeah.
But at the very least, you know, this is the only positive thing I'll say about him. Brett Ratner was just like, let's make sure we can see what's happening. And I'm like, that is exactly what you need in this movie, where you can just tell it's these fun stunts and it's very just clearly laid out for you to watch and observe and marvel at, as it's like an intricate chess game basically happens, where Jackie's like, you know, we'll use this stool, which goes here, which flies out there. And it's like, it's fantastic.
And like, we will circle back to it since it is 3, but it's kind of like my whole thing. Like, I feel like number 1, it is that, like, you see Jackie Chan doing all this stuff. 3, I feel like it's missing so much, all of like that sort of stunt, and like, I don't know, I feel like there's 1 or 2 things at the start, and then it's nothing for like a lot of the movie, and then it comes back for the final scene. But it's just like, we'll get into that anyway when we talk about 3. But
we will. I was trying to do some. Actually, we'll do stats and then I'll go into it. You guys ready for stats?
Yes. Stats.
There it is. All right, Rush Hour 1, released in 1998, made on a budget of $35 million, grossed a total of $244 million. It's big returns.
Nice.
Different time, the 90s. IMDb score of 7.0, Metascore of 60. Rush Hour 2, released in 2001, made on a budget of $90 million, grossed $347 million.
pretty good.
IMDb of 6.6, Metascore of 48. It's a bit of a drop off. Rush Hour 3, released in 2007, made on a budget of $140 million, grossed $258 million. So we see that pretty universal pattern, I feel, where you've got something successful, you got that peak, and then it starts to decline. And that's why we've never seen Rush Hour 4, which, I don't know, we might talk about later. Rush Hour 3 has an IMDb of 6.4 and Metascore of 44. Now, I did look at the Rotten Tomatoes scores, which I should have, because, fun fact, Rush Hour is the movie that essentially created Rotten Tomatoes. Did you guys know this?
No.
So the creator of Rotten Tomatoes, a guy named Sen Duong, he created it because he wanted to collect the reviews of Jackie Chan's Hong Kong films as they were released in America. Because this was around the time they were starting to come out, and, they were picking up steam. So he created this website called Rotten Tomatoes as like an aggregate. And thus we have the worst possible film reviewing website.
How could you not use the Rotten Tomatoes scores to talk about this film then?
I thought it was ironic.
Oh, man. He's rolling over in his grave if he's dead. I don't know if he is.
I assume you looked them up.
No, I didn't. I don't, man. He's just...
I mean, I can look them up real quick.
I just know number 3. I know number 3 is like 14%.
And the first one, I think he's 70-something?
Yeah, that sounds right. Do you guys go with the audience meter or the critic meter?
Depends which one I agree with.
Which one's higher? Rush Hour 1's, the tomato meter is 61%, the audience score is 78%.
Yep.
Number 2 is 52% tomato meter, 74% audience.
Yep.
And then Rush Hour 3 is... Sorry, it's not showing me up there. But Grinder, like you said, it was much lower. It is 17% tomato meter, yes, low. And 63% audience, so...
Well, still, audience still coming through for that.
Yeah, they're still fans.
Good on them.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a fun piece of trivia. There is other trivia I just wanted to briefly touch on in this film, if you guys are okay with that.
Yep.
Right.
Thought these were quite interesting. So there's that fact. There's the line, "Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?" Arguably the most quoted quote from these movies. That was actually based on Jackie Chan's real response when he met Chris Tucker, because Chris Tucker talks so fast, and he said that to an agent. He said, "I can't understand a word coming out of his mouth."
Yeah.
Some of the fake bills used in Rush Hour 2 actually ended up in circulation in Las Vegas through the casinos. And they said on them, instead of "in God we trust," they say "in dog we trust." But anyway, reports are mixed on how this happened. Some say they avoided destruction. Others say that some of the extras working stole them. And at one point, the FBI actually came in to have to try to sort it out, because they were wondering if they had violated the copyright or the money like Copyright Act, which is weird that happened. Now, unfortunately, for a very strange reason, Roman Polanski turns up in Rush Hour 3.
Yes.
Which adds to the problematic layers. Because he was a fan and he requested to do it, and it makes a lot of sense knowing what we know now. Those are my fun facts for this. Did you guys know any fun facts about these?
That last fact was so fun.
Hey, he gets punched in the face.
By 2 different dudes.
Yeah.
All right. Rush Hour 1. Detective Lee, a loyal and dedicated Hong Kong inspector, teams up with a reckless and loudmouth LAP detective, James Carter, to rescue the Chinese consul's kidnapped daughter while trying to arrest a dangerous crime lord along the way.
What a very simple plot that works.
The simplest of simple plots, yeah. But you're right.
It works. It's better than the other 2 plots, in my opinion, especially. But like, it just works, and like, it goes to the whole thing of being an hour and 20 minutes. Like, it's all you need for this. It's a classic 90s, buddy cop film. This film is funnier than what I thought it would be. I loved it when I was a kid, and I thought that I was going to cringe. And yeah, a lot of the stuff doesn't hold up, but
what specifically doesn't hold up? I want to engage with this.
Racist stereotypes, stuff like that. Like,
such as
Jackie Chan uses the N-word in one scene.
That's the big one.
I don't think it would get... I don't think it's super offensive. Like, because he's impersonating someone he's just seen, but I don't think you would do it today if you made this film today. By any means.
In hell. And it's just very much like, he says that, and then the guy behind the bar just automatically reacts with violence. Like it's very stereotypical. Like, oh, that's it. Now I'm going to beat you up instead of having a conversation. And I get it. It's an action film. I'm not saying.
You're expecting him to be like, "Hey, let me sit you down and tell you why you can't use that word." Man.
You're on the wrong side of history, Jackie Chan.
Like, this is a crime bar, man. Of course, that's what. Like, you think they're just going to talk to everyone? There's going to be violence.
I get it. I'm just saying, like, it's stuff that wouldn't hold up today. It's not like I was watching it and clutching my pearls or anything like that. And when I was a kid watching it, obviously, I had no clue what was going on. I just thought it was funny that he's copying. He says, "Do as I do" in here, and he does because he doesn't know what the hell he's doing in this country. Yeah. So it's fine, but obviously, this film is kind of interesting because I feel like there's a lot of stuff with race. Obviously, like, yeah, it's a famous line. Like, do you understand the words that come out? But it's very much like, Chris Tucker's character is racist against Asians. It seems like, or not very, politically correct around it. But it's kind of interesting that this film, like, it's a buddy cop that doesn't have a white lead. Like, has a black lead and an Asian lead, and all buddy cop films, like, were a white lead and a black lead, like, or a white lead and an older white lead. It's just like
or a white lead and a dog. Yeah,
you watched the same video I did. I was like, that's a brilliant point. It's just it's kind of interesting because it does have that racist side to it, but it's also kind of trod new ground that made it unique, and it worked. Like, it was great. Like, and I loved this film as a kid, and it was interesting to see these different things, different perspectives. So.
Sorry, before we get too far away from it, the other thing that wouldn't fly today is asking a female coworker what color her panties are. Like, I think that that crosses the line of sleaziness. Like, I get it's Chris Tucker's character, but that guy is no longer on the force. And like, he's cancelled because like he treats her pretty poorly.
Even just that it's just like a throwaway line of a joke of like, "Oh, sorry, I spread those rumors that we slept together." Like, it's just like it's sleazy stuff that wouldn't make him the hero in today's films. No. It's but it is what it is.
Yeah, they're definitely products of their time. Like, that was exactly the sort of thing that was played for laughs and was pretty rampant, like, at that time. And like, this comes up everywhere. It wasn't as if this film at the time was like, "Oh, that's bad." I was like, no, that's normal. That's just normal jokes. Haha, that's funny. Yeah. And if you remade this today, well, they did remake it as a TV show, which I never watched, but they like, if you made it, there's certain jokes that are of a time. But look, I think your point's interesting. Like, that strange sort of trailblazing is a strong word, but by having this huge blockbuster and intentionally not casting a white dude at all in any main role is really interesting and really does sort of put it head and shoulders above a lot of the other buddy cop films, I think.
And they definitely play on stereotypes, but it's like, I never felt like I was racist. I more felt like here's a culture clash. Here's something interesting. These two people coming from completely different cultures. You've got Jackie Chan, who, English is his second language, doesn't speak it very well, and you've got Chris Tucker, who speaks a mile a minute.
Too much English.
Yeah. And it's just like, it is a really interesting clash of those two cultures, and I think it's mostly handled well, apart from the few things we've mentioned.
Yeah,
like, I think it's interesting. Like, those cultures do clash. They're not, it's okay to celebrate our differences and say we aren't all exactly the same. I think it handles it reasonably well, particularly of the time when it was handling it. You're right. It's it's kind of blazing a trail. It's cool.
I definitely think this film, I can sort of see why people would be. Actually, I don't know. Look, I went onto Letterboxd. I've talked about Letterboxd before. I like Letterboxd, but it's full of hipsters, and I hate hipsters, so it's a great irony in my life. Nonetheless,
the hipster.
I was expecting all of their feedback to be like, "This film should be cancelled. It's evil. 1 star. Burn Brett Ratner." But surprisingly, the reception was a lot more warm than that, and it was actually, a lot of people like, this film is actually still really funny. My point is, I can see, I guess, as a white man, as not being either of the groups portrayed in this film, I can't understand why some people would find it offensive. The biggest, because I think what this movie does is it doesn't play the differences off as like condemnations or as one side is wrong or one side is right. It plays them off as differences, mostly as ignorance that is overcome. And by not having a white savior lead, it really avoids that issue of being like the person of color is a foil so the white man can grow. It's actually like, no, these are just two different people who haven't been in this environment and have to learn. And I think at the core of it, they really have this incredibly great relationship where they're like brothers. And, like
they have good chemistry.
They have amazing chemistry. It's insane how good that is. And these movies live and die on that.
Yeah.
But like their relationship's really sweet. In the end of number 2, when they're walking away at the airport, you see Chris Tucker just like watching him the whole time, waiting for him to talk. And he comes and he's like, yeah, Lee, what's up? Yeah. And it's like these guys are such good friends. It's really beautiful. And like their differences are, it's like with your friends, you tease your mates, you call them names. And when you have friends of different ethnicities and you have that enough of a relationship that you know it's all love, depending on what the standard is, you can tease them about this stuff. And it's like, it's all in good humor because that's what we do. We tease each other about our foibles. And that's how I feel about these movies. They're very much like, hey, Jackie, you're short. And he's just like, haha, you talk too fast. It's like, haha. But we do anything for each other.
Yeah.
See, it's like, I feel like, because of who they are as well, like you've got Chris Tucker, who is very much Chris Tucker in these films.
Yeah.
Like you put a white lead in that role saying any of the stuff that he says to Jackie Chan, and that film does not hold up at all today.
No,
having a white man yell in his face, being like, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? It paints a very different picture. Telling him, look around, you might find one of your cousins. Like it wouldn't hold up as much. But Chris Tucker being Chris Tucker, you're like, he's an ignorant, like, flamboyant person that's just like, it's him.
He's like the definition of speaking before you think, right? Like he's just he's a stream of consciousness, and it just comes blurting out of his mouth very loudly.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
but I like the plot's simple, but like I remembered as soon as the film was started, I was like, oh, that's right, girl gets kidnapped. You've got the blonde dude from Lost, who I knew him from, so it was kind of weird. Like I watched this film as a kid. Then I've watched Lost later on in life, never been like, oh, that's the guy from Rush Hour, because I haven't seen that film in ages, and watching this again, being like, oh my God, it's him from Lost.
I always forget that he's in this.
Yeah. It's so funny. We started watching the film. The second that first scene opens up and it's, like the final day of the British Hong Kong thing as well. And as soon as Falcone from Batman Begins is at the table, my wife goes, oh, there's the bad guy of the movie.
He's bad. It's kind of like that.
And it's like, yep, well, there you go. And half hour before it's revealed he's a bad guy. That's totally the bad guy of this film.
And they dip into it again in number 3, which is just lazy as.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like another rich old white man. It's like, yeah, okay, guys.
Straight away, I was just like, I don't remember this film, but I bet he's the bad guy.
Yeah. Some of the stuff in the end of this film just gets me when there's a big showdown and they're dealing. Chris Tucker confronts him and he's like, fight like a man. And then earlier on he's like, wipe yourself off, you're bleeding. And then later on she's like, wipe yourself off, man, you dead. Every time.
Like that's the when certain lines would come up like that, I remember saying that line so many times as a kid, like cracking up and being like, oh my God, that's right, I love that line. Like it's just Jackie Chan like dangling from the thing and him just being like, I'll go get an ambulance. I'll be back in an hour. And he's like, what? And he's like, I was just playing. Like, cracked me up so much when I was a kid. And even little things that Chris Tucker does, like when the money's falling, he's like, thank you, God. And he's just like putting money in his pockets. And it's just like, man, this is who I would be, maybe. Like, it's funny. I think a lot of the humor does surprisingly hold up. Like I found a lot of scenes in this had me laughing, and I was like, "Oh wow, no, this is actually it's stupid, but this is funny." Like it's just it's over the top, and
I kept writing down like one-liners, like "sweet and sour chicken ass." Next time, be polite to my nuts. Yeah.
The one that got me is like my own mum is ashamed of me. It's like she tells everyone I'm a drug dealer. And then of course I don't know if it's race or not, but when he's like, "We got the same mother, I'm Blackanese." I still quote that sometimes to my family. But just I don't know, these and some of the set pieces in this film just blow my mind every time. Like I kind of see why, like you can totally see why this Jackie Chan is such a superstar, right?
Yep.
Just, the sheer, I don't know, just the ability to do that. And obviously, he works with his group, his team, who you see the same sort of guys in every film who are always just the extras and stuff for good reason.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. It's like this is kind of the perfect film for that because he obviously had a big career in Hong Kong, made heaps of films before this, sort of inspired and very much like based off Bruce Lee before this, but made it more comedy and fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, this interesting by having like the culture clash as the main sort of tension point. It just becomes really fascinating because we, as Western audiences see it as new, and so Carter sees it as new. And so it's just kind of, it's really fun to be like, this is just this interesting world going on here that we don't know about either, right? Like audiences in the West the standard moviegoer hadn't seen Police Story and hadn't seen Drunken Master and stuff. They hadn't seen Jackie Chan's stuff. So seeing him now as like this new brand was like, holy crap, this is revolutionary. Yeah, it's one of a kind, really. Like, it's sad we don't have this still.
I remember loving it as a kid, but like I love the whole scene, like the stunt of like him trying to save the artifacts, like the vase and everything. And it goes for so long, like, and he's like literally throwing up, punching all these people, walks away, it gets shot and blows up anyway. It's just like shit. It's like it cracks me up because those stunts are cool. Like he's literally like throwing that, and he's actually doing that and doing these moves, and yeah, it's very unique. Like it's especially now, like these days, like I said earlier, it was refreshing to watch these sort of action scenes. It was like, this is different. It's it's good.
Yeah, you hear stories like he nearly died in a bunch of the stunts. In one stunt where they got the forklift and they drive a metal box and they crash. Like he just moved his head out of the way. It was like if he had left it there for like half a second longer, he would have died. And so that's insane.
That might be why they don't do them sort of stunts anymore.
Well, there's obviously a lot of safety stuff there, but it wouldn't fly anymore with OH&S. But it's just there's a magic to it, that you can't get otherwise.
I mean, isn't that a big part of why he does it's always Jackie Chan movies that have the stuff ups at the end. I've lost the word, but during the credits, where the blooper shows the bloopers, it's often him like getting carted away into hospital with the thumbs up or something in a stretcher. Whereas these movies didn't have that, fortunately. So he obviously didn't hurt himself, but obviously there's always close calls in these big stunts.
Yep. Yeah.
I just remember like him jumping up that wall at the embassy.
Yeah.
And like it was the coolest thing ever. I was like, man, how did he do that? And like he actually is doing that,
I love him fighting with the steering wheel on his hand. Like it's just so much fun.
Steering wheel.
This movie I think it has a really good balance of like him doing stunts, and I think Chris Tucker can be too much, but I think he's the right amount in this movie. This is the one where they get it perfect. I think as it goes on, he becomes a bit too much for me, but in this film, like there's a good balance of him and Jackie doing his stunts. Yeah, like very well. Like most enjoyable of them.
Yeah, because it's a great twist on the funny guy and the straight man, right? Like Jackie Chan is the straight man here. Yeah, all the jokes just bounce off. But by adding this extra element of martial arts, it makes it so much more interesting. It's not just one. Yeah, like you compare this to, I guess, any of the other big ones. You've got Lethal Weapons, you've got 48 Hours, you've got Turner and Hooch. And like all those have that dynamic of you've got one guy who's the hard-nosed detective. I mean, there's also that movie Red Heat with Arnold Schwarzenegger that is essentially the same plot, which they probably ripped off. But yeah, it's always that same thing. Just one guy who is just no nonsense and one guy who's all nonsense. Yeah, and it's just these movies I think hold up more than a lot of them. A lot of those buddy cop films, precisely because of this. It's like this makes it more interesting. Like I don't know, where would you guys rank this in the buddy cop? I don't know, podium. Are you guys big buddy cop fans?
I'll be honest.
I called you buddy cops at the beginning of this movie. So podcast.
I don't know if I've really watched buddy cop films.
Wow.
It's like a genre that I avoided. So
because you don't have any buddies. Or?
Yeah, it's just tragedy. But like I would put this one at my top because I don't really have much to compare it to. Like, honestly, I saw 21 Jump Street. That's a modern buddy cop. That's probably the most modern buddy cop. But I really like those films. They're hilarious to me. So I'd probably have that up there. But Rush Hour is one of the top, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, 21 Jump Street, Hot Fuzz, I think it still counts.
Yeah.
I mean,
It totally is. Yeah, totally.
I'm a bit of I like Bad Boys. I really like Bad Boys.
Bad Boys is good.
I'm keen to do it on this podcast actually at some point.
I've never watched Bad Boys.
Oh, it's up there. Trying to think of any others, but yeah, the other guys is good too.
The other guys good. The Nice Guys, Shane Black.
That's a good film. That's a good film. It is.
Yeah, I know. You guys haven't seen Lethal Weapon?
No,
I've seen bits and pieces here and there. I don't think I've ever sat down and watched them all. So.
Yeah, I'm keen to do that because that's a very good. Like that, they've got a really good dynamic. Mel Gibson, Danny Glover. Yeah. Should we move on?
Well, Conan, where do you rank it? You seem like you're a buddy cop guy, so.
It's not something that I really seek out, but I've just coincidentally seen a bunch. I know these are honestly the ones that I think probably would rank up the top, just because movies like Hot Fuzz, even though Hot Fuzz is a much better movie, that relies on more than just the buddy cop dynamic.
Yeah.
Whereas Rush Hour is by definition a buddy cop film, and when I think of the genre, I think of this, and I'm like, I'm sure most of that is just my nostalgic attachment, but I'm just like, it's that like I said, it's the perfect combination of comedy and action. Their dynamic is unmatched, and you can see it in the bloopers. Like they just are obviously really good friends. They just laugh at each other. They just think they're really funny. They have such rapport.
Yeah.
So, 3 points I want to make before we move on to the next one. I love the conversation of like when they're basically having a pissing contest over their dads. It's just like
my dad can kill your daddy.
My daddy will kick your ass. It's just it's really funny how they just keep it sort of starts off sentimental, like, oh yeah, my dad was a cop too, and he did this, and then it just totally turns out he arrested 25 guys in one night. Like it's just like keeps going.
My daddy caught a bullet with his bare
hands. I love the line as well. We were just talking about like funny lines earlier, but like when old Falcone falls from the building and lands in the fountain, he's just like, "Oh, you know he did." But the bloopers, I really feel like the bloopers are almost the funniest parts of these films. I really enjoy these bloopers, and I remember as a kid loving the bloopers as well. And I had a weird nostalgia for the bloopers. I was like, "Oh, that's right, this scene and like this scene of the bloopers." And I'm so glad they did the bloopers in all three of them, because definitely I feel like in the last two, the bloopers are the funniest highlights of those films. I literally called my wife back in. I was like, "Oh, the bloopers are on for number 3. Come on in here, watch this." She loves bloopers. And they don't. People don't do bloopers anymore.
No,
not so much.
They're extras on DVDs, but no one buys DVDs anymore except for Conan.
I've got a lot of bloopers here.
It was funny to watch. Like it's a nice thing after the film's done to just be like, oh yeah, you know, they're having fun, and that's the best thing to watch. So, and their chemistry's great.
Yeah. Grana, any final words on number 1?
I enjoy where he's ordering Chinese food, and he's like, "Do you have some not so greasy?" It's like, no soul food. I didn't ask for soul food. Yeah, it's just
this is some greasy shit.
Yeah. It's just so random. It's just really random. It's a really random scene. Like there doesn't seem to be any reason for him to be. Anyway, I enjoyed that.
He's just like, "I'm no punk bitch," and he's like, "Yeah, no punk bitch." It's real good. It's really good. All right, Rush Hour 2. It's vacation time for James Carter and Detective Lee, and they're in Hong Kong. While Carter wants to party and meet the ladies, Lee's out to track down a triad gang lord who might be responsible for killing 2 men at the American embassy. Things, of course, get complicated as the pair stumble onto a counterfeiting plot by LA crime boss Stephen Rain and the triad Ricky Tan, an ex-cop who played a mysterious part in the death of Detective Lee's father. This was the simplest synopsis I could find that actually said anything about it, which kind of goes to say that the plot is a bit of a mess.
It's not simple. It's a mess.
I have no recollection of this movie, honestly.
But it's also entirely pointless, and that's okay.
Is
like,
it?
I think so, because the whole crux of this one is about, you know, Ricky Tan's and Detective Lee's past. And Ricky Tan plays a role in it. And you know, there's a whole Stephen Rain stuff, and that's kind of so side. Like, he has 2 scenes, but that really
don't even remember who you're talking about.
That's what I mean. And I think rewatching it again, I'm like, it's intentionally done so. He has 3 scenes, sorry, and he really is just like this MacGuffin almost. When the whole plot is actually Lee is trying to pursue Ricky Tan for his, to avenge his father.
Yeah.
And so I'm cool with that because it's got a good motivation. As you said, we've established that their fathers are important to them.
But like, this film, I feel like is a bit of a mess. Like, I don't get like why the fake death thing? Like, why get shot off the boat?
To get out of Hong Kong.
Okay, yeah, because it's like then it's like 2 scenes later, he's like, "Oh, I'm actually alive, and I'm actually a bad guy again."
Look, only after watching this film, however many times I've seen it on this rewatch, I was like, "Oh yeah," because he says he's trying to get out, and this is how he gets to America. Yeah,
yeah, okay,
but it makes sense. It's just very convoluted.
I feel like the first half of this film, like I like the fight in the massage parlor while they're wearing their robes, and like that's kind of funny. I feel like the last half of this movie is a kind of a blur, and I don't remember it.
Yep.
I feel like maybe I zoned out. I don't remember the climax for number 2.
Climax is great.
What's the climax again? What is it?
It's the showdown in the casino. So
that's right. And then
Ricky Tan kills Stephen Rain.
I feel
Chris Tucker fights the Chinese girl.
Yeah, I feel like because of how short these movies are, I remember watching like the casino and being like, okay, a casino set piece, and I was like, oh, that was the end of the movie. Okay, the credits are coming up now. I was like, okay, I didn't realize that was the big climax of this film. But yeah, I don't know. It's all right. It's still entertaining. There's still some stuff that's funny. Sort of what Griner said earlier. Chris Tucker gets a bit too much in some parts in this film. But I feel like, this one, I could not tell you the plot in 1 week's time. I won't remember anything about it. While the first one, I still know. But they should have just kept it simple again. You don't need any plot. Like, the first one was so simple, and it was good for it.
Yeah.
They should have just known what they did. But
they leave Hong Kong too fast in this film, in my opinion.
Yes.
Like, I enjoy the Hong Kong scenes. The bamboo scaffolding chase is really good. Like, it's a good stunt. Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
That's probably the best. I feel like that's the best stunt set piece in all of them.
It's the one I remember. When I think of Rush Hour and think of the stunts, that's the one I remember for some reason. But yeah, it feels like they're in Hong Kong for like a blink, and then they're back in the US again, and that's when the movie just it's confusing, and it doesn't feel very different to the first one. But like, I don't know, you get Chris Tucker running through the sewers like a girl. I don't know. Hong Kong's a lot of fun. Leave me in Hong Kong.
Look at that rat.
That's the thing, because like I kind of remember when I first started watching the second one again, I was like, oh, that's right. It's like a cool contrast. Now he's the outsider in this country. I'm like, that'll be fun. And then it's like 10 minutes later, they're out of there. And Griner nailed it. That's kind of when my interest went on it once they came back, because then it is the same stuff again, I feel like. But
definitely, yeah, it's the case with, again, in that time, it was early 2000s, and you can just tell producers and probably Brett Ratner were like, nah, audiences go and want to see more LA. They don't like this Hong Kong place. And it's like, you guys missed an opportunity. It would have been better as a film entirely set in Hong Kong, you're right. But again, it's just the time they were like, no, we can't spend too long. We need to bring it back. And I'm okay with going back, because you get more interesting stuff, because you get Don Cheadle in the restaurant.
That's right. Yeah,
he's great in it. Like, his one scene is really, really good.
Yeah.
You get the scene with Jeremy Piven as the fashion guy. That's really great. So, but the Hong Kong stuff's great. And the Michael Jackson karaoke scene in the beginning, masterclick. That is cinema, right?
It is good. It is very fun.
And just Chamon. It gets me.
Anytime Chris Tucker's dancing is good. I enjoy that in any of these movies.
Pretty good dancer.
He's a really good dancer, yeah. The other big scene that I think is hilarious in Vegas, where he's at the tables and he gets in the chips. He's like, what the hell is that? He's like, $5,000 chips. Like, why'd the black man get a nickel? And it just goes on. Then he's giving the whole I have a dream speech.
Yeah. He's really over the top there, but I think it's okay for him being over the top. Like, he's trying to be a bit of a distraction.
Yeah.
He's playing to the people around him. Like, it's fun there to be over the top Chris Tucker, whereas he can be a bit much at other times.
Yeah, I never. And again, I guess it's just me seeing this being my first Rush Hour movie. I don't see that as an issue. I do. I can imagine, seeing the first one and having that as your standard, it'd seem a bit different.
Because is this This is what I'm talking about, like where I don't remember stuff. Is this the one with the female double agent
Yeah, Isabella.
that they perv on through
Isabella.
the window for about 5 minutes?
Slow down,
Like through
baby.
the binocular.
Oh, that's
Man,
right.
Jackie Chan being creepy
Yeah,
hits
it
different
doesn't work.
than Chris Tucker being creepy.
It's not right.
But
It doesn't
it's
feel
great.
right.
But he says it. He's so ashamed of it at the end. It's great.
Yeah, but it's just
Oh.
man, it feels way more seedy with him being like, "Yeah, do it slowly." I'm like, oh, that feels weird.
Yeah.
Like I need Chris Tucker saying it. Like it feels a bit okay.
But then the scene when he swallows and he loosens his collar.
Oh yeah,
crap.
I was almost expecting steam to pop out, but yeah,
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, no, this one I think is almost more quotable as well. Like the scene when he's talking to Isabella, he's like, "This is my titty, this is my city." That always gets me. The I Have a Dream part. When he's talking to Don Cheadle, he's like, "I'll shoot you and say you fell in the kitchen."
I'll say you fell.
And then at the end, when he's fighting Hu Lee, he's like, "I'm going to pretend that you're a man, a very beautiful man with a perfect body that I'd like to take to the movies." I quote that to myself sometimes, just in the street. I think it's great.
It's very mean, but he's like, I think he's judging the girls at the start, and he's like, "You third world ugly." It's, I don't know, it's just,
Oh god,
it's very mean, but I don't know. I found it very funny.
Yeah. And then the massage parlor scene where he's just like picking all the different girls.
Yeah.
And Jen's like, "What are you doing?" He's never jump in front of a black man in a buffet line.
god.
But yeah, no, you're right. Like the plot's a mess, but it's just an excuse to globe hop. You know, like we now have to go to this part of the world.
Yeah.
And I think I like going into Jackie Chan's past a little bit more. And even though you don't really get any, it's more nothing but surface level. You at least get some sort of an emotional resonance because you need that without having the daughter, right? You can't just have we're trying to stop crime laws. You need something, and having that is, I think, a pretty good way to keep them invested.
Yeah.
Because this is the one where he thinks he's dead, doesn't he? This is the bomb.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the P. Diddy scene. Or he's in the car listening to it. Great. So great.
Yeah. Yeah, Jackie Chan thinks he's dead for like 10 minutes and goes on a revenge.
It really, it lasts Europe. It's about 10 minutes, and then he's just all good again. It's a bit weird.
Yeah, and he's like,
Yeah.
"You died." And he's like, "Who died?" He's like, "You." Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love this movie. All right, should we move on?
Yeah.
All right. Carter is now working as a Los Angeles traffic officer, while his friend and ace Hong Kong police inspector Lee escort the Chinese ambassador Han, who you might remember from the first film, to the World Criminal Court. However, after a botched assassination attempt, the mismatched duo will find themselves in picturesque Paris, struggling to achieve a precious list of names as the murderous crime syndicate's henchmen try their best to stop them. I watched this movie quite literally 2 hours ago, and I don't understand what happened in it.
This movie, the plot is very confusing, and like we brushed on it, but this movie is the most, like, Chris Tucker is the sleaziest he could possibly be.
He feels like a different character
in almost every situation. Like propositioning the people he arrests at the start, like bending them over his hood, and like the camera angle of their butt. Like it's just, it feels dirty. It's just really awkward, and then sexualizing the daughter. Pretending to be the fashion designer and getting all the women to undress. It just, I don't know. The whole thing just makes me feel dirty.
He seems older, and he doesn't seem like the Chris Tucker from Rush Hour 1. And I don't know if it's just like, I don't know if there's like a 90s filter on things that kind of make things more acceptable. And this looks more modern, so it comes across more weird. But yeah, it feels really cringy and a bit creepy. Like he's no longer this funny dude just saying his thoughts. It's like, no, he's a pervert. Like he's not a good dude at all.
No, like you take this scene where he first meets Genevieve or whatever her name is at the baccarat table, and he sits down next to her. He's like, "You probably don't understand a word I say," and then he goes on to explain for 10 minutes like how he wants to just have sex with her. And then you compare that to the fight scene or something with Hugh Lee, and he's like, "I'm going to pretend you're a man, a very beautiful man with a perfect body who I'd like to take to the movies." Yeah. That's kind of funny and like a bit, it's like he's flirty, he's interested, but it's whatever. Whereas these other scenes, he's just like, "I want to just have sex with you." I'm like, yeah, it's weird.
It's Brett
And
Ratner.
and this legitimately, so this film feels much more dated than the other two, which is coming out 6 years ago. It feels like it should be much older. But in the original two, Chris Tucker did a lot of improv. Like most of the stuff is all ad-libbed and it's his own material. In this one, I wonder though. I don't know. I didn't find this story anywhere, but I just have a suspicion that this one is a lot more heavily scripted. And with Brett Ratner probably being like, "I want you to say this line now." And one reason is you see in the bloopers, there's parts where Jackie Chan's in that scene where he says, "Let's rent a dirty movie." He's just sort of like, there's 10 bloopers where he's like, "I like ones with prison scene, I like ones with a shower scene." And in the very end, he's like, "I like ones with horse." He's like, "What does that mean?" And Brett Ratner told me to say that. And it's like, played as a laugh. But when you think, but now knowing what you're doing, like, it's just kind of weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
And you feel it's, 100%. As soon as you're watching Jackie Chan, like, say all these lines, and then he says that comment, it's just like, it feels weird. And even Jackie Chan just saying that comment, it's like, now Jackie Chan is Chris Tucker's character. It's like it's I don't know. It doesn't feel the same as the first one. It ripped the innocence of them away. I don't know.
It's just that it's that problem with sequels, right? You wait too long when the magic's gone, and you can tell it's just kind of a cash grab a little bit. And
this one feels very clearly like much later. They look so much older. It seemed quite clear to me that Jackie Chan's not doing anywhere near as many of his own stunts anymore. Like this movie really feels lacking in the Jackie Chan stunt department, in my opinion. Like it's very sorely missed.
Yeah, well, you see, like his stunt in the beginning is he jumps out the window and he climbs down a building, and although it's still impressive, there's no leaping over things, there's no real fights. It's all really toned down. And the humor just misses the mark. Chris Tucker he's not the same character. It's so bizarre. Just every line he has, everything he's talking about is just like very creepy in this, and it's like, this is weird. I don't know why I don't know how this happened.
There's the scene, I don't know, I kind of like some of the lines, but like the scene where he's listening to Jackie Chan fight the girl in the room. He thinks they're having sex. He's like, "Come on, crouching tiger, don't hide that dragon." I don't know. That made me laugh, but it's still kind of a creepy scene, right? Like I don't know.
Yeah, he comes in.
He's so desperate for sex that he's listening to someone else have sex through a wall. Like, ugh.
Man, but like it goes for a few minutes of him just like, it's just like another guy, and then he's just like, tear that ass up. It's just oh man, it hits different now. And you can't get away from that Brett Ratner taint, I feel like, in this one especially.
I do feel almost like watching them, like this feels like an entirely different sort of saga. And I remember it did at the time as well. So like, I was obviously a big fan of number 2 when it came out, rewatched number 1. And I remember waiting for years because we love these movies. Me and my sister, we used to watch these movies religiously. Same. And so I remember when this came out, I saw it at the movies, I was super excited. We were like, finally, Rush Hour 3 is coming. Especially because there's that great blooper in Rush Hour 2 where he's like, damn, he ain't going to be in Rush Hour 3. And the whole time we were like, when's this happening? Yep. And so to have this movie come out, I remember even at the time being, what was I? Would have been 13, turning 14. I remember leaving and I was like, that is just not the same. That doesn't feel the same. That feels different. And now, coming at it again with all that we know, it's like, this is just it's kind of a sad movie in a lot of ways. There are still funny parts about it. And I don't want to say it's not awful. I definitely enjoyed elements, but it's really much, much worse. Like leagues below the other two. It's like a duology with a little sibling that no one likes.
And it goes into that whole thing. Like, I can't think of stunts from number 3 where I'm like, man, that was a cool stunt. The only thing that comes to my mind is like Chris Tucker hanging out of the car, like with his leg. And I'm like, that's just a normal action stunt now that's in action films. Like, it would have been done with CGI or something. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't have the same thing to it. It doesn't have that small scale. Obviously, the budget is 3 times or 4 times whatever the original was. It doesn't have that just cool fight choreography stunts in this film at all that I feel like or that I remember.
Yeah, even the sword fight at the end just feels a lot lamer.
Yep.
Yeah, this movie seems to turn to like tropes a lot. Like you get the scene at the start where they go to the kung
a lot of tropes, Grant.
I know, I love my tropes. The kung fu training place, and then he like opens the back door and there's a giant dude in there, and like I don't know, it just feels like I've seen so many movies where they fight the really tall guy and he just gets his ass handed to him, and then of course they're in Paris and they have to go to the Eiffel Tower, which has been in the background of every scene so far in this film. I don't know.
Thanks for bringing that up, though. I will say, I do find that scene funny where he's like, you is blind.
Yeah, that's the best part.
He's like, who are you? I am you. Who are you? And then he's like, you. And he's like, me? Yeah, you.
He's like, yeah,
me.
Me. Yeah.
That, as simple and stupid as it is, got a laugh out of me. Probably the only thing in number 3 that got a laugh out of me, but I found it funny. So,
it's a good back and forth, yeah.
What did you think? What did you think about getting the nun to swear to the French guy?
That scene goes for too long.
It does go for too long. I didn't mind parts of it, but I think it's just way too long. Yeah,
it's funny at the beginning, but I just remember watching it and thinking, "Wow, they're still riffing on this." And, yeah,
and I feel like it's not funny when the whole "No worries, my brother," and she's it's not funny. Like it comes across like that's meant to be funny, but it's not funny. And I feel like it's because they stay in that scene too long. You guys like nailed it. It's just it is funny for a bit at the start where you're like, oh no, this is funny that they're getting the nun to do this, and then it's just like, okay, we get it. But,
yeah.
Conan, what are your thoughts that Roman Polanski's in this?
Oh, it's very strange. Like Roman Polanski is an incredible director, and he's he's an incredibly good filmmaker, and he's very important to film history. But he's obviously he was almost like the OG bad director, sex offender guy before the Me Too movement. For all this, he was
OG Brett Ratner.
kind of. Roman Polanski was the original. Like, this guy is a criminal and shouldn't be making movies, but was still making movies. And some of the movies he was making whilst in exile from America are really good. And so I believe art can be separated from the artist, and I think his art is usually really good. I think his weird cameo in this is so strange. And I remember seeing it originally, I was like, that's Roman Polanski. I don't know. He's a director. I don't know why he's here. And when you hear about just he liked the films and Brett Ratner offered him a role, and then you combine that with the pseudo-conspiracy, pseudo-factual fact that there is Hollywood power abuses and conspiracies of sex abuse going on in Hollywood. It's like, this all falls into place.
Stuff it's not going on.
It's really not a leap to be to see why this has happened. Like, why this random French director, who at the time wasn't allowed to go back into America and was, being accused of these crimes.
Is he still not allowed into America?
No, he's still not. But what I'm saying is, in 2007, he wasn't either. This isn't so at the time he was still exiled.
Yeah.
And even then, people were like, oh, this guy's not, he's got a shady past. I'm like, no, it's cool. I'll bring my friend Polanski onto set.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, geez, that's weird. It's really weird. And even when he puts his, at the end, the joke is that he puts his finger up their ass to give them
that's the punchline.
It's just,
Like,
what did you guys make of it? Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. I'm, basically same as you. It's at the time watching it, I wasn't like, oh, that's Roman. I was like, I don't know who this dude is. I was like, it feels like a cameo. As a 14-year-old, I was like, this feels weird. I don't feel like this guy's a great actor or anything like that. It's weird. But watching it now and everything we know about Brett Ratner is quite weird and jarring. And I was a bit surprised when he showed up. I was like, oh shit, I didn't know that.
It's very jarring.
But it's just so much wrong with this film because, I feel like there's just so many scenes as well. Like Grant said about, he's getting all these girls to strip down and analyzing them for what feels like 15 minutes. But it's also, there's just a lot of shots of the burlesque show, and it's just it feels like Brett Ratner's just enjoying himself in Paris and just filming stuff. I don't know. There's the whole thing with the girl with the shaved head and
that. I said we come back to it. That scene is so jarring. It goes for 6 minutes, and it's Chris Tucker just being like, I nearly made out with a man. And it just goes on and on. Like as a one-off
Because she has a
line,
shaved head. It's so
as a one-off line, it's fine if he's just like, oh man, she's a man. It's like, haha. He doesn't expect women to shave their heads, okay? But it just goes on.
Yeah.
And it's just like, why? And that's the kind of thing that feels like Brett Ratner's just like, this is funny because that's gross. And it's like, this is bizarre.
That's how it comes across. Is Brett Ratner's like, this is hilarious. Keep making comments. That's make comments to bald women out there. Like, this is gross.
Yeah.
And it just feels really weird and like bully-like. It's just, I don't know. But
this film feels a lot more nasty. That's kind of the, I don't know if, I can't remember if a friend said that to me or if I just had the inspiration myself. But watching it again, I was just like, that there's kind of like a nasty streak in this where like what I said before, the first two I think are actually more than not celebrating the cultural differences, and they're celebrating this relationship of two guys who find common ground and bond and become like brothers. And it's really sort of even though it's like it's pointing at the foibles, and it's like, haha, these are how we differ, but at the end of the day we're all friends, blah blah. It celebrates that. This movie's just a lot more like, I don't know,
a bunch of jokes about.
It's just got a real nasty bone. Yeah, it's like some people are just gross. It's like it's funny to it's fun to have this scene where Chris Tucker's like, I'm going to keep your license until you come to the date on me. Like that's very illegal and just really unethical and
then to be like,
not funny.
The fat one's yours. Like it's just like it's constant like little comments and it just feels like Brett Ratner showing his asshole basically. So and even apart from that, the whole thing with the brothers is a little weird. Like it feels so tropey as well.
And the taxi driver, the Chekhov's gun of a taxi driver, like
I mean, he's probably the funniest part.
He is funny, but it's still like such a cop out at the end that he's the one that saves the day.
He's like, I followed you. It's like, what the fuck? This whole time, really? I enjoy it when he's just like, I'll never be an American. I'll never get to kill without reason.
Yeah,
that's funny. That is funny.
Yeah, that made me giggle.
Yeah,
I know. Do you guys? I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask it. Do you guys want to see a Rush Hour 4?
What is Chris Tucker like these days? I don't know. What's Chris Tucker up to?
He is really kind of withdrawn from acting a lot. The last thing I don't think not for any reason to do with his career. I think mainly just he wants to spend time with his family. Like he's in Silver Linings Playbook, which is 10 years now, but he's really good in. And I saw one of his stand-up shows on Netflix, and it was really unfunny. And I was like, I don't know if it. But
a part of me, like the nostalgia thing, I'll be like, oh my god, this is cool. I'd like to go back to this. I feel like after 3 and everything, there's just a part of like, you know what, we've got what we have. Let's not ruin it. Like I don't know, who would you get to direct? Brett Ratner's not directing it.
No, and that's what we need. We need someone else to take it on. But I would love to see that, right? I'd love to see it helmed by someone who loves the material.
I'd be into it too if they like accepted their age, right? Like I don't want them to try and make it like, oh, Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan are still in their prime. Like make them old dudes who like semi-retired or something, or I don't know. But don't play up their age. Make that part of the comedy. Make that part of the fun. That's
always the tricky thing, though, right? Because you also can't have it where the whole film is just old person jokes, and it's like I'm too old for this.
Yeah,
and Jackie goes to do a kick, and he like puts his hip out.
My back,
like, yeah. But you're right. The same. It would have to be like post prime. Make it a hard hitting character drama. It's like Jackie Chan has to confront the fact that he can't do kung fu, and Chris Tucker's like served time for sex offenses. Like,
I was gonna say,
have it as this reflection.
Chris Tucker's character would have to be completely different in this day and age, and especially now that he's 20 years older.
Yeah,
he can't pull off the same stuff at all. He couldn't even pull it off in number 3. But
no, I mean, what they need a remake of The Bucket List, but have those two guys, just 2 old men going to see things before they die, and just the beauty of their friendship because their relationship is so good. I just love seeing them hang out and just seeing if it was literally just like almost like a dramedy, and it was just them going around the world being like, I've always wanted to see Madison Square Garden. I've always wanted to go do this and that. It's just them doing these things.
Dude, gritty HBO limited series in the vein of True Detective season 1.
solving this. Yeah, they're solving this horrible murder of Sue. What's the girl's name? Sue.
So young.
Sue Young. Yeah, so young.
So young.
Solving Sue Young's murder.
She was so young. Now she's a murderer. So have her be a killer. I don't know, but yeah, it's. I don't think so. I didn't even know there was a TV show until today, and I'm like, I'm never checking that out. So
yeah, it looks. I don't think it lasted very long. But it looks.
Yeah, I think it was one season and done.
Oh, man. So no.
Yeah. Well, I'm still holding out hope that a non-criminal director comes on and saves it.
I think it could be fun. Like, I'm keen to see Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker get back together. That's the part that excites me about that idea.
Did either of you guys see the movie The Foreigner with Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan?
No.
That's an interesting kind of movie because it's got Jackie Chan. He's a lot older and he's playing that, but he's still sort of he still does some of his kung fu, but it definitely feels like you can tell that he is playing into the fact that he's older, like an older man who had these skills, and it's kind of how he would do it. And that's, even though that movie's a very obvious drama, I'm like, that you can still do that direction of Jackie Chan having stunts, but yeah, like you said, Grant, are aware that he's older and showing the limits and how that would work. But anyway, do you guys have anything else you want to add about Rush Hour?
No.
Are there any other quotes we missed?
Plenty, probably.
Plenty that we're not allowed to say.
Yeah, that's true. We could be here all day.
We've reached our quota of quoting Chris Tucker.
Yeah.
All right. What do we got next? I don't even know who's up.
So, I realized halfway through that I hadn't picked one, but so I've come up with one on the fly. In the vein of this and karate and cool stunts, we're going to do the Wolverine Trilogy. So this is Wolverine.
Oh, no.
What is it? Wolverine, not First Class.
X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yeah,
X-Men Origins Wolverine. Then the Wolverine, which I'm very excited to see again. I haven't seen it since I first watched it, but I really like that film. And it's is it? It's Denise Villeneuve, isn't it?
No. It's it's the same guy who did the third one, which is James Mangold.
Yeah. I got it confused. And of course Logan as the third film, which is spoiler alert, the best one. But hot take.
Are you sure? Yeah.
But I remember kind of liking the Wolverine, and I haven't seen it in 10, 15 years. So yeah, and I'm on a bit of a Hugh Jackman binge after watching Prisoners recently and realizing that dude is just a beast. And so I want to watch something else with Hugh Jackman, and he is definitely a beast in these films. So watch them.
Cool.
Right on. All right. That's exciting. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on another episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Worst. As always, it's brought to you by the book that I wrote, The Taste of Iron. I don't have a copy here, but
I was reading mine. I don't have it on my desk at the moment.
But if you want to be the third person to buy a copy in the world, let us know. That'd be quite exciting. If you like listening to this podcast and like listening to us talk about movies, you'll also enjoy listening to us talk about video games on our other podcast, Bonus XP, that releases every other week, where we engage with anything and everything video game related. You can find us on socials. I don't know what the tags are, so just dig around. I'm sure you'll find us eventually.
At Good, Bad, Worst, and at Bonus XP.
It's a tricky one.
I should have guessed. And we'll catch you next time.
Peace.
See ya.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?